research in social science also supposed to be scientific. And I'm moving on to the third slide because the people who are viewing it, maybe I'm numbering the slide whereby they can also understand it. So most probably you may understand that I just explained about what is scientific research, but we need to know why we need scientific research. Maybe this is also I'm not going to detailedly explain because it's a snapshot where we can understand that one way is like when you want to acquire a degree, you need to do a research, especially when you want to do your even undergraduate looks at a minor research, which we call as a project. In a postgraduate, in an MPhil degree or a predoctoral degree, we call it as a PhD or a postdoctoral degree. Either it can be called as a project, or it can be called as a dissertation, or it can be called as a thesis. So ultimately, we need to do some research to acquire a degree. Number two, we need to do a research to make a presentation in a national or international seminars or conferences or symposiums. But we don't do that. We normally get into a simple what you call it as understanding and make a what you call it as a perception out of it, and we go and present in a seminar. But ultimately we need to look at scientific research for a presentation also. The third thing is that we need to do research to make a publication. So for example, today the biggest challenging is that even to get a career or even to move to a career advancement, we need to have more publications in a what you call as reputed, today we call it as UGC essays, that CAR listed journals, or ABTC from Australia. So ultimately there are so many what you call it as American journals which are there. So if you want to get into that, you need to do a scientific way of research where you can convert that as a paper and an article which can be published very easily. And the fourth important thing which we need to understand is like even we can go for research projects, and if you want to acquire funding from the agency, your research proposal should be a scientific one. That is more important. And whether it is a minor project or a major project or a micro project which is given to your own institution, or anything. Okay, I'll continue. So what happens is like when you want to go for major, minor, or micro, or if you are looking for funding projects or independent projects, especially from UGC, ICSSR, DST, and especially recently they have come out with Stride, Impress, Spark. So if you want to get into such kind of funding agency projects, you need to prepare your proposal, research proposal in a scientific way, and you need to also do your research in a scientific way, and you need to submit them. Then only it will be accepted with a high quality commended mark.
Sir, excuse me, sir.
Yes.
Sir, 1 second.
Yeah, please.
Participants, kindly mute your audio and video. Dr. Janavi, ma'am, please mute your audio. Janavi, ma'am, kindly mute your audio. Thank you, ma'am. Sir, you can continue now.
Thank you, madam. And as a continuation, like the fourth important or a fifth important reasons why you need to go for a scientific research is to guide others. That's the biggest problem we have in India as well as among us, because when the research supervisor is so comfortable enough or know it that how research is done and in what way, in the sense like scientific way the research can be executed, ultimately the scholars might not have much problem. And today we know that openly, I'm telling you, even though it is a webinar, that our research is going much commercial. So we need to avoid the commercial. We need to do research by ourselves. Everything has to be done by ourselves. So that if you become a research guide or if you become a supervisor, whether for an undergraduate program or a postgraduate program or for a pre-doctoral research or for a PhD or for a PhD, ultimately you need to know what is scientific research. So these are the reasons why we need to understand. Ultimately what happens is like this session, with this intro, I'm planning to make it like three part. One, we are going to understand exactly what is scientific research with little more add-on, and next I'm going to discuss on the research process in a scientific way. That is what is called a scientific research process. And the third important thing which I'm going to make it in a practical way, that is called a scientific research approach. So we need to understand these three components. If you are able to understand these three components, you can prepare, you can do your own scientific research in a better way, which can be laudable in a global level. So if you look into scientific research, these are some are bookish information, but I want to make it very practical. That's why we need to understand, because a lot of research methodology books will give you even international authors or national authors will give you a lot of bookish information. But out of my own interest, which I got it like the thing
Sir,
is
one
that,
second, sir.
yes, madam, please.
Ma'am, kindly mute your audio and video, ma'am.
Hello.
Ma'am, kindly mute your audio and video. It creates some disturbances.
Audio or video கேக்குது அந்த பொண்ணு. Video.
Audio, video. Kindly mute your audio and video, ma'am, please.
Video.
Yes. Sir, you can continue, sir.
Yeah, thank you. And as a first part, we need to understand what is scientific research. Most of us know that scientific research is research. That is a word which we normally understand, researching of information. But that is a bookish information, and beyond that, that is also required. Like whenever we want to find something new, we need to what you call it as research of information. And number two, we need to find new things. That's an ultimate aim of any research, actually. So we need to find new things. So maybe like today what is happening is research, like the same way what somebody has done, we are doing it. But that's not a thing. We need to really work on something new, something innovative, something feasible, which we can make it out to the policymaker and the society. And another important thing of a research is fact-finding process. Most of us, like we need to find the facts, actually. We need to work towards finding a fact. It is not that you know something and you want to prove it. That is also research, but still we need to find the facts. And the most important thing is that identifying the problem as well as finding a solution to the problem. So these are some of the things which we need to understand, like we need to put into a systematic way. And whenever we want to look into that, there are two aspects which we normally get into. One is rule of thumb. That means whatever I'm saying, that is what it is, right? So most of us conclude our research saying that it is my perception, my opinion. It is not that. What is the general perception, general opinion? What is the actual finding? That is what we need to make it. So doing a research with rule of thumb is unscientific. So that means what is scientific? Doing research with a scientific method, scientific tool, scientific technique. That is what scientific research is all about. It is not that we have a lot of tools and a lot of things in science. We do have a lot of tools and techniques in social sciences also. So that means that finding something new is more important. And most important, it is not rule of thumb, it is unscientific, it is scientific method which we need to follow. And mostly, if you looking today, the entire research can be in social sciences. We can do it in two ways. One, descriptive research. That means that whatever we know, if you are going to say whatever it is, if you are going to say as it is, then it is called as descriptive research. But if you put your own thinking, your own idea, your own perception, your own what you call it as strategies, and if you are able to do some kind of analysis out of what is existing, then it is called as analytical research, or we call it as an empirical research. And again, there is another version which we have, like quantitative research, qualitative research. That means if you do anything with the data, numerical data, in generalizing your research, then it is called as quantitative research. If you are going to do research with your perception, your understanding, your thinking, your observation, so ultimately that can get into qualitative research. Beyond these broader categories of scientific research, we do have one more, because in these things we can even do research on a population or a selected samples. But there are one thing called as you have to take only one unit if you are going to understand one unit in social science. For example, if you are going to study about one community, one individual, one institute, one unit, that means one university, one industry, or one company, if your understanding of a unit is one, then it is normally called as case study. Most of you know it, and the want of time I'm skipping off explaining about the case studies, and this is what it is. If you are doing it in a macro level, then it in a what you call as more than a unit, then it is a research. And if you are doing it in a single unit, then we normally call it as a case study. So this is what in general in social sciences we look in. The other side, like every research supposed to be innovative, it should be systematic, it should be logical, it should be purposive, it should have an objective, it should not be subjective, it should be accurate, it should not be approximate. And one more thing is that it should be replicable. So ultimately what happens is, These are some of the basics which we need to understand. Research has to be done in a scientific way. If you have these components, in a nutshell, I can tell you that new scientific method with different approaches and objectivity into that. There is no subjectivity at all. So then if you do like this, or if we are doing like this, then ultimately it will reach to the 99% confidence. There will be only 1% level of significance where there is a difference may exist in understanding any kind of research work. And the second part, till now we have understood what is scientific research. So in a simple one tagline to conclude the first part of it, I can tell you, doing a research in a systematically with a technique accepted by global audience. So that is what it is called as scientific research. And the next thing is that scientific research process. Maybe most of you are faculties, most of you are research scholars. By the time you would have understood the research process, but what we are able to know, in my opinion, any book you take it, any book for that matter, if you take it, so ultimately what happens, you know, they'll be giving 5 steps, they'll be saying 6 steps, in some research it is 7 steps. Out of my own experience, what I'm going to tell you is like, as we have 2 hands with 10 fingers, there are 10 process or 10 steps we have in research. Then only the research gets completed. And that means the research of independent nature gets completed. Research never completes. It keeps on going. But still, if you look in these 10 steps, it is in the slide. I'm going to go one by one. If we are doing social science research following these 10 steps, then it can be called as a scientific research. So now what I'm going to do is, I'm going to explain you in short, very practically, not as it is in the books. So very practically, whereby anybody can do a scientific research. It is not, many people say that doing a research is very hard, doing research is time consuming, doing research, we need to know more. True, but we can enjoy the research. Maybe when I go to the third part, you can understand how we can enjoy the research. And the first and foremost step, first step, what I'm going to tell you is defining the research problem. Many researchers has a problem with defining the research problem. If you are able to define the research problem in a proper way or in a scientific way, then almost half of your research is over. Then later executing the research will be easy. The most important thing is the first step. If you look into that, my humble submission is, maybe I know all social science category of discipline of faculties and research scholars are in this group. Maybe you may be management, you may be commerce, you may be economics, you may be what you call as sociology, psychology, education, so criminology, library. There are so many people maybe in this panel. So ultimately what we need to do is, if you want to find or define the research problem, you need to work on in your interested area of your choice. That is more important. What normally we do is, whenever we want to do a research, whether PhD or a project, we go and ask somebody, supervisor, sir, madam, can you tell me a topic? Can I do that? So that is not a right way. Whenever you want to do a research, you should find, you know that, comfortable in which area. If you take any area, for example, if you are taking sociology, whether you are good at clinical sociology or counseling sociology or community sociology, in what way you are. So that should be there. You should select the interested area. Once you identify the interested area, the next step, scientific step, is that you need to generate an idea. That's more important. That idea, that what you want to do, that is more important. That thin idea is going to do a research. Research cannot be a wider one. It should be narrowed down. So ultimately that idea generation should be there. So how to generate an idea? That is practically we need to understand, my dear. The thing is that there are 2 ways, in my opinion, what I feel is like, one is that you have to make idea-based review or review-based idea. What it means? You have to think an idea, then you go and search for the information on that idea. And if you search the information, now it is very easy. You go and ask Google, Google Scholar, it will tell you everything. You can contact your own experts, you can discuss with your friends, your own faculties, your own fellow scholars. So ultimately you gather so much of information, which we call it as review. So ultimately what happens is, like, if you able to fine tune, make your idea much better, then you can come to you can identify a true research problem. Or the other way is that you are totally blank, you don't get any idea. Then what you have to do is, in your interested area, go and review on that. You have to find an article, published works. There are a lot of databases are available online today. You can even go to library. Many people are not going nowadays to access the old information. For example, my own PhD, I did it in logistics science. I got that an idea from a Harvard Business Review, which was published in 1930s. So that means that you try to understand that I grabbed that information from a very old, what you call it as a document from Pondicherry University Library when I was an MPhil scholar. So ultimately what happens is, like, there are so many sources available. As a researcher, you may aware it. So either you should generate an idea, go for the review, bring about the research problem, or you review it, then get an idea, then form a research problem. And more important that you need to understand it clearly, and you need to list down that. See, whenever we are going for a review, idea generation, there will not be only one idea, there will not be only one review. Ultimately, there will be n number of ideas, n number of reviews, and you have to make it narrow down. At least 5 ideas you need to list down. When you narrow down your ideas like a funnel, then ultimately you need to go for review, actual review of literature. It can be offline, it can be online resources. Once you get that articles, research articles, somebody has done directly, somebody has done relatively, somebody has done closely. So grab all those research articles. Whenever you collect the articles, there is no hard number in saying that I have access to more than 400 articles for my PhD, used almost 300 articles. And there are so many which I have just left out by reading. So what you do is you have to prepare a statement, scientific. See, there is a scientific tool for review of literature also, which I have given in my what you call as PowerPoint presentation. So statement with the title, with the researcher name, with the year when they did, what are the objectives they have taken, what are the methodologies, what is the analysis, what are the findings, what is the suggestion, what is the conclusion, what is the agenda for future research. All this, you need to make it a tabular column in your Excel. Now Excel sheet is there. So take one article, write down horizontally. When you have in one sheet, then ultimately, for example, minimum 10 articles, if you have 1, 2, 3, and you have all these details, ultimately you can grab your own title, you can grab your own objectives, you can design your own methodology. And thereby, that information, what you are culting from your review, is what I mean to say the research gap. You can identify the research gap. Once you identify the research gap, your mind will be little vague. You have to narrow down with your English knowledge, because English is a medium for what we do in research. Maybe Tamil, if anybody is there in Tamil, so ultimately, or any other language students are there in this, what you call as webinar, you can also think of. Then you can frame your title of research. When you frame your title of research, please, my dear researchers, please understand, respectable faculties, the title of research should be very short. And mostly in social sciences, we frame the title with the help of samples, with the help of population. That today the global research normally looks research variables to be slotted on the title. For example, determinants of logistic service providers, determinants of customer satisfaction, factors influencing social implication of poverty. So ultimately, like, it should be research variable, not the research sample. For example, we normally do know a study on customer awareness in Coimbatore district. It is not necessary. All those samples we can give it in methodology. So today, build your title with research variables. That means one research variable can be your research. You can do a research. Or you can take 2 research variable, you can do a research. Or you can take 3 research variable, you can do a research. You can build the title with the research variables, which you want to find out, which you know it. Based on that, you can build a title. Just now I was saying, no, my intention is to identify how logistic service providers are influenced. That means determinants of logistic service providers. I'm not mentioning any places as such. So you can find out, and today the suffix and prefix is not required. Global research, you would have seen many articles. The word study, analyze, impact, all those things are not coming here. Experiment. So these words is not required. Directly you can write, and title can be in 2 lines. Main topic, subtopic. Today that subtopic concept also has gone. So we can go over one thin line which can explain you exactly what is your research. So this is the first scientific way. If you are clear on this, remaining 9 steps are nothing. So interested area, generate an idea, go for review, or review the idea, go for review, then go for an idea, understand it, prepare a statement, come out with a research gap, frame the title. So after framing the title, so title is what is called as the bigger research question we are going to answer. When the bigger research question is going to be answered, it will be very difficult if you ask only one question. So what you have to do is you have to break up the title into multiple questions, especially in social science, that you can break up that into 3 or 5 sub questions to answer it. That 3 to 5 questions is what is called as objectives of the study. So the second step is we need to draft the objectives and hypothesis. And drafting objectives is quite easy. For example, if you want to understand, the known example I am going to give you, if you want to understand the customer perspective on the online webinars, if you want to understand, right? Let us frame it. Customers awareness or customers perception. Let us take customers perception on webinars, because it is a hot things which is going on. We are not going with seminars or conference, we are going with webinars. So ultimately what happens here, it is a bigger question. If you want to answer that, you need to frame objectives. I think some of you are writing down, some of you are thinking of what kind of objectives it is. I could understand that. First we need to understand there is a framing also. Whenever you frame the objectives, we have a protocol scientifically to study, to describe the English literature we normally use there, to elicit, to enumerate, to bring out, to sort out, to provide. So all these you can use it, which I have given in framing of tips, which I have given in my slide also, framing format. So to identify the level of awareness on webinars can be one objective. To identify the level of utility of webinars, second objective. To identify the satisfaction on webinars, third objective. To elicit the expectations on webinars, so fourth objective. So these 4 objectives, whether it is sequence, that we have to understand. So we need to write objectives, and that means research questions. Then we have to understand in a sequence. First, what we have to ask, whenever you write objectives, make sure that where you are going to ask or get your answer. Based on that, if you look in, then you can frame your objectives. Once your title and 5 objectives are ready, then you need to go for hypothesis, framing of hypothesis. Many people ask me, sir, is it necessary to have an hypothesis? In my opinion, it is not mandatory, but if it is there, it is a guiding principle for objectives. Each single objective can have one hypothesis, minimum one hypothesis, or it can have multiple also, left to you. But hypothesis, please understand, it is the predetermined answers. It is a predetermined answer. That is what is called as hypothesis. As a researcher, we may know that this may be an answer, but that may not be an answer also. So ultimately, we need to frame hypothesis. So once your research problem is identified, the title is framed, and the second step is you are drafting the objectives, 3 to 5 objectives, and minimum one hypothesis, you try to grab it. And I have given the tips in your PPT also. As number of objectives, as I told you, arrangement of objectives in a logical sequence is more important, and most important that you need to validate your data. That means that if you have an objectives, if you have an hypothesis, You can validate your data with statistical tools, which we are going to look at, right? So ultimately, another thing which as a researcher scientifically we need to understand is that whatever logic we are thinking, is there any tool to prove or disprove that? That we need to understand when you frame objective itself. For example, we have a lot of statistical tools which are available. You may ask me, sir, is it necessary to have a statistical tool or any other tool? Please understand, any science can be reframed, framed, repaired, or destroyed or invented with the help of tool. For example, you have a fan, and if your fan gets repaired, you cannot do it with your fingers. You should have a spanner where the spanner can help you, a screwdriver can help you. For example, you may be sitting in an AC room. If your AC gets repaired, ultimately you cannot do it with your hand. You need to have such kind of equipments where it can be rectified. In the same way, research cannot be done as it is. An analysis has to be done, and that should be done with the tool. And that tool, we have n number of tools. In social sciences, we use statistics, mathematical models, statistical models, or econometric models. There are so many which we can think of. So that is what I mean to say, that if you bring a logical objective, you should also know how it can be proved or how it can be analyzed with a statistical analysis. That is what I mean to say. There should be a match between logical significance to the statistical significance, whereby it can be called as scientific research. And the third important step is more important. That is, till now we have decided what we want to do, in what way we want to do. And the next thing is that how we are going to do. That's more important. The third step, a scientific step, is what is called as methodology. And in the methodology, we have to understand two important things. One is the research design and the survey design. These two we need to understand. And in my slide, I have practically given, like, what are the things you are supposed to. That's what I said. I'm not going to talk entire book. I'm going to talk practically how a researcher can, even a person who wants to just do MPhil or PhD can do it. First, we need to understand what type of study that we are going to do. Already we have decided the research problem. Already we have decided the title. Already we have decided the objective. Already we decided the hypothesis. When that is clear, then you can understand whether it is going to be descriptive research or empirical or analytical research. And today, in my opinion, any research out of my experience I have seen, either it can be descriptive, or it can be analytical, or it can be a combination, or it can be a case study. So that means you need to be very clear whether it is a descriptive research or an empirical and analytical research is same. The jargon is different. So ultimately that you have to decide. Number two, in the methodology you have to decide what is the data source you are going to use it. Whether it is going to be a primary data source or secondary data source. In a simple sense, you need to understand, if any data is already existing in a literature, in a database, in a what you call a data set, or with any publisher, or with any authority, then it is called as secondary data, because somebody has created it and I'm going to use it. But whenever I do my research, if any data is not available, which you need to generate, or I need to generate, we need to generate, then it is called as primary data. The first time, if we are going to generate a data, then it is going to be primary data. And mostly research, social science research normally gets into primary data rather than secondary data, but still equally primary data and secondary data are so important. And when you are doing with the secondary data, there are so many data which you can collect. Maybe we can call it as a time series data, cross-sectional data, right? So these are the things which you can collect it. For example, stock market data, it can be secondary data. GDP, inflation, economic data, poverty, unemployment. So all those secondary data which you can collect and you can make an analysis. And mostly social science research, we normally depend psychology, especially sociology, especially commerce, management, economics, so history. So whatever it may be, we normally look in for a primary data, library sciences, or what you call as any discipline you take it in social sciences, we normally look for a primary data. And whenever you want to go for a primary data, it is normally called as primary survey, which I have given it. Whenever you go for a primary survey, scientifically, you need to denote these things. You need to identify these things. Sorry. Number one, you need to know who is your sample, who is your population, from whom you are going to collect that first-hand information. For example, if you are going to collect information on webinars, from whom you can collect? Whether you can collect someone who doesn't know what is webinar at all, or you want to collect with someone who knows the webinar, or someone who attends the webinar, who hosts the webinar, who moderates the webinar. And ultimately, we can do an n number of research with everyone, but here the population is those people who know and who involved in webinars. And who is the sample? If you want to know entire detail about webinar, that means that you need to go to someone who is hosting it, who has attended it, who has been conducted it, who has been a resource person for that. If you go with that sample, then you can have all kind of information. So you need to know who is your population, under the population, who is your sample that you are going to study. When you know your sample, the next thing which you need to understand is what is your sample size. Many people have a problem. Like, sir, there is a statistical formula which is there to identify the statistical sample size. They apply that and they take it. But nowadays, what is there? We have a software also. For example, G-Power. Please note down. G-Power is a software which, if you can use it to get the sample. So that's the one renowned world global software which is available. G-Power. And beyond that, there are a lot of calculators, scientific calculators available with Google also. If you go and give all your details, research details on that, it will tell you. But in my opinion, there is another way also we can do it practically. That whenever you are reviewing it, you know, for example, 10 research closer related, what do you call as in your research area, then you see that how many samples they have taken it. See the minimum sample in a paper and the large, the maximum sample. Maybe you can put it in above the sample or an average of that, whereby it can be justified. It can be justified. Even through statistical tools also, we can identify whether your sample size is adequate. Then we can again go and collect it. Maybe in a data analytics workshops, you may get it. Maybe sometimes later, if you are able to meet me, then we can discuss on that. And you can identify the sample size. And one more thing is that you need to know sample location also, from where you are going to get it. And most important is, sorry, sampling technique. That is more important. How you are going to get your sample from the population scientifically. It is not simply you can get it, but there are so many techniques, probability techniques, non-probability techniques available. A simple example I want to give you. Probability techniques are those, if you know the population and if you are going to select a sample from that, then it is called as probability sampling. That means that any sample you are going to select from the known population will give you the same results. That is an understanding, equally the same. But when you have a non-probability, that means that when you don't know the population, if you are selecting someone, there is all probability that it may go wrong also. It may be right also. That means in a simple understanding, I'm telling you today, probability sampling techniques can be used only when you know the population. Non-probability sampling can be used when you don't know the population. Simple logic. And when you go there, for example, when you have sampling techniques, a minimum three techniques are available, most popularly used in our scientific research in social science. When you say, like for example, you know the population, webinar, for example, here 108 people are attending now. I know this 108 people. If I go 108 samples I have. So there are so many webinars happening at the same time. Among that, this is one webinar, and in that 109 now, 109 participants are there, 109 participants. So when you have 109 participants, I know everyone. From here, if I select some number, for example, 30, I'm selecting 30 or 35, then ultimately it is called as simple random sampling. Known population 109, 30 sample size. If I am selecting from here, it is called as simple random sampling. And parallelly, for this we have non-probability sampling also. Suppose I don't know the number of population. I don't know how many, I'm not part of any webinars, but I want to collect it. Unknown population. So 35 people I want to collect it. Then it is called as convenient sampling. So simple random sampling in probability, convenient sampling in non-probability. And suppose I have all these 110 people now. What I can do is, I can go for a systematic. I want to have, for example, 10. So I can select every 10th person, I will have 10 people. Then it is called as, that means 1, 10, then 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90. So 10 people I can select. So if I go systematically, then it is called a systematic sampling. Equally, we have for unknown population, that is non-probability sampling, which is called as judgment sampling. Based on your prior idea of a researcher, if you select, I want this guy, I want this sample, I want this person, I want this person, then it is called as judgment sampling. The same way, if a sample size is larger, then we can go for a bifurcation. Thereby, we can put it into 3 or 4 groups, then we can select it. If it is known, then it is called as stratified random sampling. Strata, we call it as one group. Stratified, known population, north, south, east, west, 10 people, 40 people, I can get it sample. If it is unknown, then the same logic which I can use, quota sampling, which we call as cluster sampling. So simple logic, known population, if I know, if I want to collect known population, simple random. If I want to have a stratified, systematic, so systematic sampling. Groups, stratified sampling. So probability, you have simple random, systematic, and stratified. In non-probability, you have convenience, then you have judgmental sampling, then you have quota or cluster sampling. Beyond that, now you can use combination also. That is called as multi-stage sampling. You can use two stages, 3 stages, 4 stages. So ultimately, you can go for multi-stage sampling. So in one stage, you can use one model, another stage, you can use another technique, another stage, you can use another technique. Now, innovatively, there is one more thing which is called as snowball sampling, my dear. Snowball. That means that there are samples which are unknown. For example, if you want to meet transgenders, it is not easy. If you want to meet the cancer patients, it is not easy. If you want to know, for example, now we have COVID patients. We may not know who is a COVID patient. Now the government is using snowball sampling technique to identify the COVID patients. For example, the people who are affected with coronavirus. For example, if someone is there, if they are able to know that person, it is not that what you call as from everybody, then society they'll have. They'll be inquiring them. That person will say, yeah, I was having contact with this person. So when they go and test, it is positive. When they go and test, it is positive. What we are following now is snowball sampling. What is meant by snowball sampling? It is very simple. For example, in the what do you call it as the ice mountains, there will be glaciers. So one glacier, one ice ball will rotate. It will come to the other place and it will stand there in the space. It will go to the another one. It will hit another. So this is what snowball sampling. Normally, snowball sampling will be helpful when you are unable to identify your samples, when you are not able to reach your samples. So the best example is this coronavirus situation. What our government is using is snowball sampling technique. That means one you identify, then through them the source is identified, the next person is identified, containment area is done. So the best example, thank God, like the best example which we have got it. So once you decided your sampling technique, then you should decide your data collection tool. That is your 4th step. Data collection tool. Because you cannot collect data as such by just talking to them. There are so many tools available, but the scientific tool is that you need to record. You cannot hear and come and write whatever you want. So you need to record whenever you are discussing with your, or when you are contacting, whenever asking your the respondents or the samples which we call, or cases which we call it as. So probably when you go for a primary data collection, there are 2 tools which is used popularly scientifically. One is called as questionnaire, the other one is interview schedule. Beyond that, proving other things are little scientifically very hard. So now the questionnaires are which comes in Google Docs also. So people are using Google Forms and Google Docs to collect questionnaire. So you need to understand what is meant by questionnaire, what is meant by simple. You have decided the title. Then we have got 5 objectives. We have got n number of hypotheses. Now from the objectives and hypotheses, you need to draft in-depth questions, in-depth statements. And when you prepare a statement, it can be open, it can be closed. For example, if you are asking a question, you can give yes or no. It can be open also. They can write anything. But today what is happening, when they write anything, quantifying that is very difficult. So what we need to do is we need to go for quantifying of that information, because it has to be converted into numbers. Then only we can go for an analysis. So we can go for generalization. So ultimately what happens is like when you want to write it, you can give diacritic answer. You can give the closed. That means you can give an answer also, thereby they can tick it. Diacritic, that means yes or no. Diacritic answer. It can be multiple options also. It can be scaled, unscaled questions also. If you are asking for a scale, normally we use Likert scaling technique. It can be 3 point, it can be 5 point, it can be 7 point, highly satisfied, highly dissatisfied, satisfied, dissatisfied, neutral. So ultimately that 5 point scaling, 7 point scaling, it depends on that. High, low, medium, very high, very low. So satisfaction to dissatisfaction, agree to disagree. So you can give a number of things. So when you prepare your questionnaire, it should have closed-ended questions scientifically. Open-ended questions may lead to subjectivity, but our ultimate scientific version is to make the objectivity. So closed-ended question, it can be diacritic, it can be multiple, it can be scaled. So scaled data, unscaled data also you can collect through your questionnaire. So hardly, in my opinion, if you are having 5 objectives, minimum 30 questions is more than even enough to complete your PhD with one scaled data, one scaled instrument, which can be adopted, which you can also generate. So once your data collection tool is ready, then practically, scientifically, what you need to do is you need to go for a pilot study. What is a pilot study? Before going for a main study, you need to conduct a pilot study. For what purpose? To go for a validity and reliability of your questionnaire or interview schedule. Before I go it, I'll have a small differences. Questionnaire and interview schedule looks more or less same today. What is the difference? When your sample is filling the question by themselves, then it is called as questionnaire. If a researcher I is going to fill by asking you, then it is called as interview schedule. Simple. The data collection tool can be classified based on the usage. When we use it, when our respondent is able to answer by themselves in a written format, then it is questionnaire. When they are unable to do, for example, I want to collect about farming finance, agricultural finance. Sometimes my own fellow member in the agricultural field, my own sister, my own grandpa may not be in a position to tell us or to read and write some languages. In such situation, you can collect, having your questionnaire, instrument with you, you can collect. Then it is called as interview scheduling. So that is a simple difference. Once it is ready, then you have to go for a pilot study. That means, for example, if you have decided your sample is 300, for example, 30% of your sample, 10 to 30% of your sample, you have to collect for pilot study, and after collecting it, you should go for validity, reliability. And when you go for validity and reliability, before you prepare the questionnaire, I'll tell you that content validity can be done easily. Once you are making it, make in every question yes or no, give it to 3 experts. They will say whether it is relevant, yes, or irrelevant, no. Bring all 3 experts answer. If one question, if all 3 has given yes, it is relevant, consider in your questionnaire. If 2% has given yes, make your justification. If it is needed, take it. If all 3 has given no, remove that question. Then ultimately content validity can be done with the experts. Today a lot of software has come in, but that's the best way. Reliability can be done. Use your SPSS package. Now reliability analysis can be done, where Cranbach alpha, all those technically you can learn little later. So that can be done. So once your pilot study, your questionnaire, data collection tool or interview schedule is ready, then we can go for data collection. Real data collection, you can make it. Once you make the real data collection, after collecting it, there is no need to do manually. Nowadays, nobody is doing it, but we are going for outsourcing. Please, my dear, don't waste your money by giving outsourcing of your data. Learn the data analytics, learn statistical tools, learn the package, whether it is SPSS, it is Grittle. I have given n number of packages. You can see SPSS, Samos, Lizrael, Visual PLS, GPower, Grittle, eViews, MATLAB, Vega, R. There are so many data analytics software depending upon even qualitative analysis. Also, there are so many data analytics software has come in. Please use that data analytics and learn it. Let us do it by ourselves. I have not outsourced my PhD. I have did each, and I am confidently speaking here thanks to Dr. Ranganathan sir, who is my professor and guide from University of Madras, that each and every letter and every data analysis is done by me with his help. So we didn't go to any statistician because you know that some of you may know it. So how strong he is on statistics. I'm gifted to learn from him. It's an acknowledgement that I want to make it here. It is because of him I'm doing all this research. So that means that if we learn, there is no need to spend money, and even we can guide better way for our own scholars. So we have to learn it. But to brief it in a nutshell, the fifth step, data analytics. Before I get into this, I will go to the next slide. Most of you may be knowing Tamil, some of you may not. I'll translate this. If you are going to make a data analytics, a person has written one thing called as what is meant by research. ஆய்வு. எண்ணங்களை எண்களாக மாற்றி எண்களின் எண்ண ஓட்டங்களை கண்டறிவதே ஆய்வு. I'll repeat. எண்ணங்களை எண்களாக மாற்றி எண்களின் எண்ண ஓட்டங்களை கண்டு அறிவதே ஆய்வு. That means what? We have to grab the opinion, perception of the people, convert that into numbers. From that numbers, if you understand what is going on, if you are able to identify, that is research. Who has written is Veyamu. Nobody is there. Veyamu is myself. V. Arulmurugan. So that is an understanding you need to have. And data analytics, why we need to do data analytics scientifically? To describe facts, to find out some patterns, to develop explanations, and also to test the hypothesis. Data analytics has to be done. Today, it was used only in science. Now we are using it in social science. To make you understand what is data analytics in a pictorial way, I will take you to the next slide whereby you can understand. The first one is data. You see data, everything is there. The second one is started. You see it is started in the colors. And the third one you see it is arranged. And the fourth one you see it is presented. And this is what is called as statistical tools, or the data analytical tools will help us to understand in a meaningful way. For example, if you see in the last one, the red color is the maximum one in the bar chart. If you go and see the data, raw data, the first one, you may not know which one is higher. Right? So this is the power of data analytics which we need to understand. And I'm going back again to the what you called as methodology slide. Please, presenter Merlin madam, please go to the methodology slide. 3 slides before.
Hello.
Yeah, one more.
Hello.
One more slide. Yeah, please, thank you. So if you look into this, I'm going to make your analysis very simple, researchers. There are 3 levels of analysis you can do, and that goes with the data also. If your data is 1, it is called as univariate data analytics. If your data is 2, it is called as bivariate data analytics. If your data is more than 2, it is called as multivariate data analytics. You may understand what is this variable. See, one issue, one thing, one research variable. If you collect the data, then it is called as variable. If it has its weight, it is called as variate. Simple. So if in our research, if I have one variable, then it is one data, one set of data. If I have 2 second variable, then it has 2 bivariate. If I have the third one, it is multivariate. Most of the research goes with multivariate. And if you look into what are the tools, I can simply guide you the logic of understanding the statistical tools with your data. Basic thing is that you need to first go for data tabulation and chart, whereby if it is a primary data for your information, as I told you in the beginning, there will be scaled data, there will be unscaled data. I explained you already what is scaled data, what is unscaled data. When you are having a scaled data, use mean score analysis and ranking. If you are having a unscaled data, use percentile analysis. Don't get confused. For example, if you have yes or no option, it is a unscaled data, use percentage. How much percentage yes, how much percentage no. If you have 3 or 4 options, unscaled data in each category, education qualification for that matter, 5 options would have given how much percentage, enough. Based on the frequency, convert into percentage. Packages will do. And if it is a scaled data, for example, very high, very low, high, low, and moderate, it is a scaled data, 5-point scale. There, please don't use percentile, it will be meaningless. Instead of that, we can go a little powerful tool which is called as mean score analysis. You can find the mean of it, mean of each what you call a statement of the entire representations, respondents, and you can have a mean score. Mean score will be surely from 0 to 5 because it's a 5-point scale. And for example, if you have given 10 statements, if you are having 10 mean score, the highest mean score is ranked number 1. You can give the rank also. So it is very simple. Tabulate your data. If you want, make your chart. But when you tabulate your data, if it is unscaled data, go for percentile analysis or percentage analysis. If it is scaled data, go for mean score and ranking. This is what is called as univariate tools or univariate analysis. The next one is bivariate. When you get a bivariable, if you want to know whether one is influencing on another, whether it has any relationship, association, or it has any differences. Only these two, association, differences. These two relationship only you can make it out. Then you want to know whether these two has an association. For example, whether the gender is associated with the variable, research variable, webinar, in the sense like highly satisfaction or satisfaction of the webinar. Satisfaction of the webinar and the gender, if you want to know the association, there is a tool available. What is the tool? It's very simple. Chi-square test. See, chi-square test. First example, I told no fan. We need to have a screwdriver and spanner. Like that, if you want to know the association between two variables, gender and the satisfaction of the webinar, then I should use chi-square, because please understand, if every statistical tool is created for a purpose and you need to know the purpose. If you know the purpose, if your research purpose and the statistical purpose is same, you can apply the tool. Simple logic, nothing else. For example, I want to find out the difference. I have a male, I have a female, I have a third gender also. I want to know webinar, how it is different. Whether male, female, and third gender has any differences in getting the satisfaction of the webinar, then I should not use chi-square, because that tool is different. For only association, I should use a tool called as t-test. When this group is only 2, male and female, I can use t-test. When this group is 3, that is a third gender, then I should use ANOVA. Then we have MANOVA, multiple, everything is there, which we call it as hypothesis testers. So that means we created hypothesis. No, if your hypothesis to know for association, use chi-square test. If your hypothesis is to know the differences, use t-test. If that group is only 2, if the group is more than 2, use ANOVA. Simple. Now SPSS has that options. You can do it if you learn properly. Simple logic. So you can prove your hypothesis or your research whether it is accepted or not accepted. You can use statistical tool also, like significant difference, significant association, right? Now I have a third variable where I need to go for multivariate data analytics. There are so many which I have listed down: reliability analysis, factor analysis, cluster, discriminant, correspondence, multiple correlation, multiple regression analysis, structural equation modeling, and NNA. Most of you may not know. Neural network analysis, which I have used in my own PhD in understanding the neurons of logistic service providers. It is a scientific tool which we are adopting in social science also. That is what we need to go for changing it. For example, we have a scientific, for every action there is opposite and equal reaction. Now we can use that scientific principle into our commerce also, our social science also. If you smile, they'll also smile. If you show your harsh face, they'll also show your harsh face. This is what happening. So in any social science research also it has happened. If you do good for others, they'll also do good for you. So we can use that principle and we can find out. So ultimately these things are there. If you want to have a more clarity, I can give you little later, because a separate session is required for data analytics, and we need to have a lot of other things also. So you can use all these data analytics. I'm skipping the other two slides, which I have seen already. I'm moving on to the 13th slide. Madeline madam, I'm moving on to the 13th slide. So we have seen 5 steps now. And the 6th step is more important. These are the ways scientifically, practically we need to do our research. And the 6th step is how to draft our report. Whether it is dissertation, thesis, project report, there are a number of things said. Practically in India, we call it as, if it is a UG or a PG, we call it as a project report. If it is a MPhil, we call it as a dissertation. If it is a PhD, we call it as a thesis. So this is what we are normally following it. In many of the countries, thesis and dissertation is simultaneously followed. Anyway, so if it is social science research, we normally follow APA publication, American Psychology Association publication manual, which is freely available in online, which you can download, and you can go ahead. But when it comes to PhD thesis, scientifically a report has to be prepared. I have given a snapshot, the format is more important. Our entire thesis report or a research report has to be divided into 3. One is prefatory items, body of the report, and terminal items. In the prefatory items, you will be having a cover page, you'll be having all the certificates, you'll be having the acknowledgement, you'll be having the table of contents. If you want to give any abbreviations, everything will be there. And in the body of the report, how to prepare the body of the report. Please, my humble thing is that we started with one title, 5 objectives, minimum 5 hypotheses, maybe number can be increased. That we have converted into 30 questions in your data collection tool, that we have analyzed with the statistical tools. And how to present? Don't present as you have analyzed. Many theses I have seen, many research I have seen, they are presenting in the angle of usage of statistical tools. It is not correct. We should present our chapters in the form of objectives. There are 2 formats. One, you can give a review of literature chapter separately. You can give all 5 objectives as 5 chapters, or you can give 2 objectives in one chapter, another 2 objectives in another chapter, another 1 objectives in another chapter. Choice is yours, but it should be objectivized sequenced chapter should be there. And each chapter can have univariate analysis, bivariate analysis, multivariate analysis. Every chapter can have it. It is not that first univariate, dump all tables. No. It should be each chapter, we are only looking in the objective angle. Please understand, we are only looking in the objective angle. And that is what I have given in the chapter design, which I will go back there. The principles of writing is more important practically, which I have learned from my own professor, Professor Ranganathan sir, by observing, and when he corrected it, I had 4 bundles of correction, where that is a record for me, that I am now guiding students with that, which he has wrote everything very clearly. One is that the style, which style we are going to adopt in writing your report, and clarity. Anybody has to understand very clearly. Hope whatever I spoke till now, it is easy to understand. I have not used any what you called as a big case studies or something. I made it very practical, that as you can understand. So clarity should be there. And grammar, what kind of grammar we are following, don't worry about that. Don't do any English teachers. We have a lot of softwares available whereby you can check if you are good enough. A simple grammatical mistakes you can identify. Voice also matters a lot. Whether we are writing it in passive voice, active voice, that is matters. Usually whenever you write your report, please write it in passive voice, not in active voice. It's better to write in passive voice. And the words, please use user-friendly words. Anybody who will be reading your report has to understand. It should not be too technical. And numerals, numbering should be sequentially given. If your numbering is not correct, then understanding will go. Quotations, you know that. You need to know where to use the capital, where Do not to use the capital. That also most important. And abbreviation. Please use globally accepted abbreviation. Sir, I'll finish it within 5 minutes. Thereby, everybody can go ahead. It's 5:15 now. I'll finish it in 5 minutes. So abbreviations, okay, and the presentation of statistical results, tables, charts, graphs, everything should be clear and needed. For example, I have seen somebody presenting two different charts. When tables are easily understandable, let us not dump with the charts. When tables are not easily understandable, go with the chart. Use visual statistical tools nowadays. For example, STEM, neural network analysis. These are visual statistics which are used. So this is how you need to write your reports. And when it comes to chapter design, in Indian scientific way, in a global way, how they are accepting it, which I have given minimum 5 chapters, like introduction and conceptual framework, review of literature, research design and methodology, and the 4th chapter I have given analysis and discussion. That can be multiple. If you are having 5 objectives, it can be 5 chapters. If you are having 3 objectives, it can be 3 chapters. Even if you have 5 objectives, you can convert it to 3 chapters if it is relevant. And final chapters, we are supposed to use summary of findings, suggestion, and conclusion. If we are going to present like this, then it will be a scientific report. Be clear on it. And the other 6 steps are so important, but research will not come to an end. Scientific research will not come to an end if we are not going for these 4 steps. Number 1, submission for evaluation. Our research should be evaluated by a third party or an expert. That is happening in our UG project, PG project, MPhil, PhD.
Excuse me, sir. One
Yes.
second, sir.
Yes, madam.
Dr. Raja, sir, please mute your audio. Dr. Raja, sir, please mute your audio. It creates some disturbances.
I will complete within 5 minutes, my dear friends.
Dr. Raja, sir, kindly mute your audio.
Dr. Gauri madam, can I go ahead?
Yes, sir, please.
Yeah, thank you. The submission of evaluation, that's more important. Most important thing is that we can, even for funded projects, it has to be submitted, it will be evaluated, the report will be sent. If it is not right, again, we need to work on it and we need to send. So any research has to be subject for evaluation. Then only research, whether it can be good, because my wrong things I may not know, my mistakes I may not know, you only know my mistakes. Till now I have spoken, you may have n number of questions to me, which I should answer you. And number 8th thing is that after submission, please don't get your degree and go off. Don't think that you have completed your research. The 8th step is so important, that you have to present your research findings in a form of a research paper in a national level, international level, reputed institutions for in front of the audience. That's more important. Which we do it as a bio work. Beyond that, we need to go and present. Take their version, take their perception, take their understanding, accept our fault and correct it properly. Then our research finding will be more important. Once you have gone for a presentation, start your suggestion. If you have corrected it, then you send it for publication as a research article. You are leading CARE listed journals or ABDC or EBSCO, Science Direct, elsewhere. So wherever you want to go, any publication, but today it is more. Don't send it to any pre-factory publications. So send to the publications, minimum 6 to 1 year it will take. They will send you for review. We have been doing a lot of review works. I have been in some of the panels, so review work. So minutely they'll be working on what your mistakes. See, it is not that they are showing our mistakes. They want to make our research article more quality one for the future readers. You and I may not be there after 30 to 40 years. Our research article, our research book will be there, which will guide somebody else in a better way. We should show a path. And even there doesn't end. The last 10th step is more important. In our own research, how we analyzed in the review of literature, found out a research gap, the same way we can also find a research gap from our own research and we can go ahead. For example, we need to go for a further research. I will just tell you one example and line up. Dr. A. Shankaran, who is working in Pondicherry University, who is my research, as collaborator. We have been working for past almost 10 to 12 years on research. We have just completed one of the ICSSR research projects jointly on women entrepreneurship, growth, development, and difficulties on women entrepreneurship, and we have submitted it. It is evaluated. There is one finding which given a gap for us to work on a new project. We have developed, for example, many women entrepreneurs are not taking decision on by their own. Their family members are influencing people are taking decision on the business. Now we want to work on it. We want to find out it's a gap. So myself and Dr. A. Shankaran, we developed a project work on dependent women entrepreneur, independent women entrepreneur. And we want to find out what is the entrepreneurial strategies they build. I'm revealing the as a real project which we are working on. So ultimately what happens, one research will pave way up, thanks to Dr. Shankaran who have been working with me. So for the other projects, other research area, further research, we can do it. If we are able to do, I'm moving to the next slide, madam. If you are able to move, or if you are able to do scientifically all these 10 steps, defining the research problem, that means the title, drafting the objectives and hypothesis, methodology, primary data or secondary data, data collection tool, validity, reliability, and data collection, data analytics with adequate and relevant statistical tools, scientific report writing, submission for evaluation, presenting in a platform, publishing a leading reputed articles, and continuing research in your area will always help you to focus your findings to a policy maker. That is what it is. The two component I have finished, 5 more minutes. That the one we have understood what is scientific research. Number 2, we understood what is scientific research process. The third thing is more important. Many researchers has a problem. How to identify the research title? How to identify the scientific research domain? I have developed a mechanism with the help of my professor when I was attending his classes. In my opinion, doing research is fun. Well, you can go to the next slide, but push it in one single button, I'll go ahead. Next button, please. Doing research is fun. You can go to the next one. How many of you understand that doing research, because many people think that doing research is not a fun. In my opinion, I enjoy doing research. Many researchers enjoy research doing it. And in my opinion, fun is little different. I'll go with the last word. N, please note down, my dear researchers. N stands for novelty. Any scientific research should be novel. It should be new. We should not copy from existing. Then our research cannot be in the limelight. It cannot give you any new findings, new guidelines, new strategies are new. So research should be new. And I told you what is new. Anything is new, modified from existing. It can be. Number 2, U stands for utility. In my opinion, any research which is coming out should be useful to 3 people, stakeholders. 1, it should be useful to us. I need to get a degree, I need to get a appreciation. I need to get a, honor out of it. Number 2, it should be to the policy maker. The utility of our research should be to the policy maker. I was still looking for a enhancement of Ministry of Logistics. My research finding in 2013, I have given there should be a Ministry of Logistics which has shipping, airways, roadways, all the transport together, whereby we can go for. Yesterday, Prime Minister Sir also was talking about we need to go for global with local. That means that we need to go for international logistics. We need a separate ministry called as Ministry of Logistics, which will take. I have given in 2013. Still, it is in the pipeline. One more. I have found 7 variables, research variables, which I posted in the LinkedIn. one of the French logisticians acknowledged one of the variables that they said that it is Indianized variable which is not available in a French, what you call as France. So ultimately, this kind of innovation has to happen. And the third thing is that it should be useful to the society. Please understand, our research findings should be useful to the society. And the third thing is more important. F. F stands for feasibility. நம்மளால முடியணும். Sorry, we need to know that I can do it. We can do it. Feasibility. When I say feasibility, it is that I am able to do it. We cannot take a research topic which I cannot do it. Many people are doing for 10 years. They are discontinued PhD. What is the necessity? So when you think of a title, feasibility also you have to think of. When you think of a feasibility, three feasibilities you have to think of. One is whether resource will be available. Number two, whether time will be available. Number three, whether I can offer. The cost of research also matters for data collection, for buying a laptop, for using the resources. So it is not that cost, I mean, it is not outsourcing, paying to someone to do the research. I'm sorry, it is unethical practices, ethical cost. So that means that novelty, utility, and feasibility, these are the three important things that fund. That is what I say, Dr. Vam's fun approach for scientific research. Dr. Vam, it's me, Dr. Arul Murugan. Because when somebody says Arul Murugan, people are not believing. But when I say Dr. Vam, oh, Dr. Vam, somebody is there. So that is why we have kept the name. So every scientific research goes on Dr. Vam. So what I mean to say is, if you want to do a better research, please use this fun approach, use all those 10 process, and you can execute. I'm going to the final slide for your information. The most important is, there are certain skills. It's an add-on. I didn't give it to till now in the introduction. When you want to become a scientific researcher, you need to have a skills. That means typing and formatting, you need to know. Online material collection, we need to know. Data collection and analysis, we need to know. Conceptual and statistical significance, we need to make it. Drafting and proofreading, we need to do. Logical thinking and doing, we need to understand. We cannot do separately. Multitasking has to be done. We need to collect the data. Another thing we need, most importantly, ethical understanding with a guide is more important. Guide is not for us. They cannot call you every time for research. As a research scholars, if some research scholars are there, guides also will be there. Usually guides cannot call us. We need to go to the guide. We need to get a clear appointment and we need to go. And the other thing is that please get help from others. Any help, but you can get help, but please understand, do it by yourself. Research is fun when you do it by yourself. If you are not doing it, you are spoiling the entire ethicality of research. If you want to be a scientific researcher, you have to follow all this, which I am doing it. Maybe to conclude, research, we understood what is research, and today we understood what is scientific research. And please understand, research never ends. Researchers has to end it. It is out of my own experience. Research will not end. We need to come to a conclusion. Okay, I have to stop, complete my research. I can take to another research. And please remember, novelty, utility, feasibility. Dr. Vam's fun approach for scientific research. Doing research is fun. Just do it. Thank you. So there is a book which is written by a guy which I have given it. It's not promotion. If you read it, you can understand research in a scientific way. If you have any queries, Dr. Merlin, madam.
Hello.
Yes, then Dr. Merlin, madam, can I go for question and answers if possible? Tilaka, madam.
Yes, sir. The session is open
please.
for questions, sir. Yes, sir.
Thank you. Merlin, madam, you can keep the last slide whereby my number, email ID and everything is available. If they want, they can note it down. Otherwise, you can share the PowerPoint also to them. No issue. Yeah. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Definitely, sir. The session is open up for question. Participants.
Dear faculty friends and my dear young research friends, research scholars, if you want to have any clarity, you can just ask me. I know that there are around 99 plus messages which is there, but still, if somebody want to ask me any questions, I'll be happy to answer you.
Hello, sir.
Hello.
Yeah, please. One at a time, please.
Hello, sir. I am Dr. Loverson.
Yeah, please, sir.
Yes, I'm working in assistant professor in Wales Institute, Chennai. How we
Okay.
can identify innovative research areas, sir?
Innovative research area. That is what you are asking, right? Innovative research.
Yes. It may be useful
Innovative
to
research area, correct?
society also. Yeah.
So
yes, sir.
innovative research area, please understand that it should be from your interested area. That interested area is what is called as innovative research area, which I mean. When a researcher will get an interest, a normal citizen, when a normal human being will get an interest. For example, if I like ice cream, if somebody is giving an ice cream, I will like the ice cream as well as the person who has given it, right? Correct.
Yes, sir.
So that means that innovation comes only based on your liking. When we like more, we can innovate, we can put our creativity. So that means that first you identify what is your interested area. When you identify your interested and liking area, then ultimately what will happen, you know, that you will be tend to identify an innovative area. That is the logic. Try it. You can try it.
Okay, sir.
Yeah. Because Ilavarasan sir was asking me, many of the people, innovative projects, they want to Google it and find out. See, whatever you Google is an innovative idea of someone. So when you get into your own interested area, liking, that's what I mean to say. No, I can eat ice cream in any manner because if I like it. If I don't like it, I will eat my ice cream in a lethargic way without liking it. So I cannot find out innovation on it. So that's the one
Yes.
thing which I can tell you. Hope you understood.
Yes, sir. Suppose
Yeah.
in my area,
Hmm.
new updates across the world, how we can identify the
Sir, what is your
new
specialization,
thoughts,
sir? What is your discipline?
taxation, sir.
Taxation. You are from commerce or management?
Commerce, sir.
Commerce. So taxation, that means that you need to get into the authorities, like
Yes.
authority institutions. Like we have a lot of institutes. We have what you call it as the income tax authorities or GST councils. So we need to see all those, right? Internationally, if you want to go to international accounting standards, you need to go ahead with that, or you need to go ahead with ICI, or you need to go with Central Excise, or you need to go with all those government bodies, and you can go with CII, you can go with what you call it as FICCI. So all those people come out with what you call it as a lot of reports, research reports, whereby every time Deloitte, Ernst Young, so government, ICRA, CRISIL. So these are the people, they come out with the different reports. So if you read the research reports, research findings, then you can get into innovative ideas on that.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Ellison. Yeah. Any other queries?
Good evening, sir.
Yeah.
Myself Shashi Kumar from Bangalore, sir.
Yeah.
Sir,
Yeah.
how do we differentiate between univariate data and multivariate data, sir?
Sir, it's very simple. I'll just start. Don't bother about the data. When we are going to do a research, we take one issue, right? We take one variable, one thing, and that one thing, one issue. For example, attitude of a person, attitude of a consumer, attitude of a customer, attitude of the retailer. So anybody you take it, attitude is one research thing, one research issue, one research variable, one research variate, one variate. That's all. So it is one
Okay.
unit, one variable, right? If you are going to, with attitude, if you are going to find out the satisfaction also, that's another variable. So it is bivariate. If you are going to
Yes,
find
sir.
out expectation, so another variable. So attitude, satisfaction, expectation, three variable. When you have three variable, if it is anything is more than two, it is called as multivariate. And I want to give you, since you have asked it, variable and variate, it is different. Variable refers to that item, that data, the value generated by that variable because of the responses given by the respondents. It is weights or coefficients. In different jargons we call it as. When you add that into that, when we say that weight with that name, then it is called as variate.
Okay, sir.
Got it,
Thank
Doctor? Got it, Shashi sir?
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. Welcome. Any other queries?
Sir, good evening.
Yeah, please, madam.
Sir, I'm Suganya. I'm research scholar in VLB. Sir,
Yeah.
how to identify research gaps, sir?
So just now I was explaining in the step number 1, out of that 10 steps, if you remember.
Yes, sir.
Step number 1, if you want to define your research problem, that means you need to identify the gap. Then only you can define your research problem, right? So when you want to define your
Okay, sir.
research gap, what you have to do is,
Okay, sir.
first, there are two methods which personally I have identified. One is
Okay.
you have to
Okay, sir.
generate an idea that this is a research which I am planning, that is innovative idea. Then you have to go for review, idea-based review. Or else you go and collect the review, or a lot of article, then from there you generate an idea, review-based idea. Either any one method you follow. When you follow that, end of the day, you will be having at least 10 to 20 research articles which is already carried out by an expert researchers throughout the world. Correct?
Yes, sir.
Once you have it, once you prepare that statement, as I told you, if you read again and again, if you understand that, then from there, they would have explained you, this we are unable to do. Agenda for future research.
Okay.
So we have to read between the lines, behind the lines, not as the lines. So if you read that, then we can generate, the gap can be identified.
Okay, sir.
Thank you, Pa. Thank you, Surendra.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Any other queries? Participants? Dear friends?
Good evening, sir.
Yes, Ms. Sundari madam.
I am from Karaikudi, sir.
Yeah, please, Sundari madam. Go ahead.
Sir, can you justify about probability and non-probability sampling techniques, sir? How we will use this in our research?
In a simple sense, I told in between also. It's very simple. It is in the methodology part, right? So the simple thing is that if we know the population, that means what? If you want to identify, if you want to understand what you call it as those people who are physically disabled or physically challenged. For example, we want to identify the physically I think somebody is also on the mic. I think Amlotpam madam. Amlotpam madam.
Sir.
I'll give it clarity on that and I'll come back. Amlotpam madam.
Your materials is very useful.
Okay, madam. Okay.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you, madam. Mute your mic, madam. I'll answer for other participants.
Okay, sir. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, madam. Thank you. Yeah, thanks, Amlotpam madam, for muting it. See, regarding going back to the probability, see, it's very simple because many people confuse with a lot of things. I'll make it very simple. See, when you know the population, that means from whom you are going to make a study. So when you know the population, that means you want to, a best example we can take it like chocolates. If you want to understand chocolate, if you know that how many people take chocolates, if they are the population, if you know them personally, that you can meet them, from there if you select a sample, then it is called as probability sampling. There are so many techniques I told you, you can adopt. When you don't know the population, for example, you want to, that's what I said now. So now we don't know who are the people who got affected by coronavirus, who are converted into COVID-19. People may have coronavirus, they have to be converted into, they will have a COVID-19. We don't know who is having COVID-19 unless otherwise we test. There, when the population is unknown, we have to adopt non-probability sampling. That means that when that means probability sampling, every sample will reflect the entire population. In non-probability sampling, every sample may not reflect or may reflect the population. That is why probability samplings are more scientific and non-probability samplings are not that much scientific. Is it okay?
Yes, sir.
Sundari madam, is it clear for you?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. I know some of my good friends and colleagues also there on the line. Thanks a lot for joining this webinar. Is there any other who want to have a clarification?
Hello, sir, this is Dr. Malini. Your
Yeah,
own colleague.
Malini, come on. Yeah.
Yeah. Wonderful session. Really, we are delighted to have your session with a very simple and understanding the message which you are given. It will be very useful for the scholars as well as the supervisors also to get a more clarity on the concepts. Once again, thank you so much for the wonderful session.
Thank you, Malini. Thank you. Any other queries? Any
Hello.
other clarification if you require?
Hello.
Yeah.
Good evening, sir.
How are you? Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Sir, I'd like to ask you, sir, regarding sample size calculation. If the population is unknown, so how we can calculate the sample size, sir?
Yeah, that's what. See, there are statistical formulas are available which you can do it. But in my opinion, what is happening, practically there are a lot of difference between what is there in calculation and in reality. So what I normally suggest to my own, what you call it as well-wishers and scholars is that, well, while you are making a review, right? For example, if you are taking 10 research articles of a global nature, for example, one from US, one from Australia, one from New Zealand, one from Sri Lanka, one from African nation, one from Russia, if you are able to find, right? Usually we will be doing that. If a real review of literature should go beyond borders, cross borders. So when you are taking it, surely each researcher would have had sample size, right? They would have followed the same scientific way. Okay, that is one way. So where you find out what is the minimum and the maximum they have taken, because it is internationally published and accepted, and you can fix your sample size in that tentatively. Then after collecting the data, now we have a software like Visual PLS software is there and the SPSS is there. You can put it on that, whereby if it is a scale, if you have an instrument, you can use your factor analysis. In that factor analysis, there are two add-on. One is called as the sample adequacy, okay, and sample significance, KMO, PhD of sampling adequacy, KMO test. So if you make it, it will give you the sample significance. If it is 0.6 and more, right, that is 60%, then your sample size is okay. If your sample size is not okay, again go and collect some more. So that is how we need to find out, no other go. And the G-Power, it has that facility. It is a open source software we can download. G-Power you can download. And there it is all, see again, when the population is unknown, we cannot fix any number. And it is on the researcher probability. That is what scientifically people say. As a researcher, you and I know better on the research convenience. So looking into all the parameters, you can decide using that software, or before collecting that data, you can use GPower. After collecting it, and also that review strategy which I told you, minimum maximum strategy, or you can go for, after collecting a certain amount of sample, you can use it factor analysis in SPSS, and you can go for CAM test, and there you can find out whether your sample is adequate or not. If it is inadequate, then you can go for what you call it as additional collection of samples, because it's unknown, so you can collect from anyone of your sample. Then you can add on till you get your sample adequacy, and then you can always say that it is based on the statistical tool, the sample adequacy is there. So these three formula which I normally follow.
Okay, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, Navroj Bara. Have a great day.
Thank you, sir.
Hello, sir.
Durai, come on.
Hello, sir. I'm happy to say I'm your student, one of your students.
Thank you.
Actually, I have two questions, sir.
Please.
The first one, I want to ask him. The online survey via Google Docs, maybe the online survey via Google Docs be considered as convenience sampling, sir. Is it clear, actually?
See, I'm able to understand, Durai. I got it.
Yes.
You're asking me whether online survey through Google Form or Google Doc is a convenient sampling. That is your question.
Sir. Yes,
I will tell you, technology is different. Technology is a medium, that's all. We have statistical tools, right? We have probability and non-probability sampling techniques. First, we need to decide the technique, and then we have to use a tool. I mean, this technology. For example, if you are going to use probability sampling, simple random sampling, that means you know the population, right? You know the sample. That means you know the contact details of the sample, correct?
Yes.
If you are going to send your Google form only to that contact known sample, and if you are doing your research, then it is probability sampling. Okay.
It comes under problematic, exactly.
Problematic, because you know, you have a list, you know them.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
If you don't know the population, if you don't know the sample, but you know the size, if you are sending to everyone, then it is convenient sampling. Got it?
That is, sir, actually, you told there is also one of the snowball sampling. I thought maybe it is a similar to snowball sampling, sir.
Which one?
Snowball as well as convenience sampling.
See, snowball sampling is used on sample. Okay. Sample to sample. In your Google case, in that case, for example, if you are sending to me, I may not be your sample. I can simply forward to another person.
Exactly, sir.
Right. Then how come it will be snowball sampling? You got it?
Yes, yes, I got it. The second one, the hypothesis, is it compulsory for doing research, sir? I mean, dissertation.
Hypothesis is not mandatory.
For a thesis, dissertation, even also empirical any research.
That's what I'm saying. Na? Hypothesis is not mandatory. It is not compulsory. But if you have hypothesis, then it will guide your research in a proper way. In that angle, hypothesis can be kept. In my opinion, see, for example, before you ask me a question, you should have surely had some answer, right?
Yes, sir.
What is that? That is hypothesis, correct?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So, every objective, every question surely will have predetermined answer. That means hypothesis is there. So, if you bring an hypothesis, that will tell you the purpose of, narrow down purpose of your objective, that you can match with the statistical tool objective, then you can apply. So, when you have an hypothesis, it will be easy for you to decide your statistical tool for analysis. And scientifically, you can get the findings.
Okay, but it is not compulsory for framing the
hypothesis. It is not, that's what I'm saying. No, it is not compulsory.
Okay.
Right? But for example, how to say, like hand washing. Those days it was not compulsory. Now it is made compulsory. Right?
Yes. Yes, yes, sir.
Still people are not using it, but we need to. Go ahead.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Durai sir. Thank you. Thank you.
Sir?
Yeah, Ms. Melvin, please go ahead.
Shall we wind up, sir? Is
Yeah,
there
choice
any?
is yours. Maybe you can ask your. Thanks a lot. Technically, you have supported a lot. So maybe if you are going to wind up, give me a minute. I'll just sum up.
Sure, sir. Sure, sir.
Yeah. Okay.
Participants, are there any queries left out? So if so, kindly mail us. We shall forward the same to the resource person so that he shall clarify you the doubts. Over to you, sir.
Yeah, thank you, madam, and thanks a lot for everyone. And let me first conclude and review everything. We have just seen three important things: what is scientific research, what is scientific research process, and we have seen what is scientific approach. And in the scientific research, I have very clearly explained that we need to go to the global standard. We need to follow all scientific tools and techniques, and it's a systematic way of doing. And when you say scientific process, I have given you 10 steps which we need to follow scientifically in a practical way as a researcher rather than going with a bookish information. Number 3, scientific approach. Don't forget Dr. Mann's fun approach for scientific research. So whereby that fun stands for not only for happiness, it is also for enjoyment, and it is feasibility, that is what you call as novelty, utility, and feasibility. So if you keep all this mind and Dr. Rams in your mind, you can contact me at any time. My number is left, my email is left, my WhatsApp number is the same. So if you contact, I'll be happy to guide you, counsel you at free of cost. Please make it research supposed to be free. That I strongly believe want to take quality research rather than commercializing it. We all should learn each other. We all should help each other. We should make the research a quality one, and it should help us policymakers and the society. There should be a lot of social relevance. So with this concluding remark, let me thank the management, the principal, the head of the departments of post-graduation, undergraduation, especially Merlin madam for coordinating the PPT and other things, and the academic coordinator, Gauri madam, and the person who was responsible for this webinar, Dr. Sulekha madam, for inviting me. And I'm so happy that a lot of known and energetic researchers were interacting with me for almost like 2 hours, 4 to 6. So I'm so happy that I have done some justice for your research. Still, you may have difference of opinion. Surely you can mail me, you can WhatsApp me. I'll be happy to help you. And even if I have any doubts, I can also ask you anything. So thanks a lot for all the opportunity. Thank you, madam, and thanks for the entire organizing team. And research should keep going. Thank you.
So now it's time to propose a vote of thanks. Shall I, sir?
Yeah, please go ahead. Please go ahead.
Good evening to one and all present here. It's my immense pleasure in proposing this vote of thanks at this juncture. First of all, I would like to thank our management and principal sir for giving us permission for conducting this webinar. Next, I wish to thank our resource person, Dr. V. Arulmurugan sir, Assistant Professor, Pondicherry University, for sharing his valuable time and knowledge with us today. Thank you, sir. I also extend my special thanks to our academic coordinator, ma'am, and our team for providing technical support for conducting this event. Thank you, ma'am. I'm much indebted to all our participants for the overwhelming support in making this event a successful one. Thank you all. Finally, I express my sincere thanks to Dr. Sulekha ma'am and my dear colleagues for constantly delivering their valuable support in every endeavor of the department. Thank you, one and all.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Mr. Rajesh Ravi, sir. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Sulekha madam, I'm leaving. Thanks a lot. Who is in line?
Sir,
thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. We'll meet again. So keep going. Keep rocking.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, sir.
Participants can quit your sessions.
Ma'am?
Tell me, ma'am.
Shall we wind up, ma'am?
Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for the support you extended towards us.
No
ma'am.
problem, ma'am.
Thank
It's
you
a
so much,
teamwork.
ma'am.
Okay, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay.